and great was his fall. Have you ever fallen? And how great was that fall? Every time when I see children running outside and one of them trips and I see them falling on their hands, it hurts me. Because I still so much can remember what it feels to fall on your hands and on your knees. Many times my mother would be upset with me when after church we were outside just enjoying ourselves as we would as youngsters, and then I would come back with another hole in my trousers. Sometimes it was just a color of green of having run on grass and then fall, but at least the trousers were still in one piece. But when the trousers were ripped, my mother was upset. My grandmother used to say, like, well, don't worry about anything. I mean, he's better actually falling on his knees, and it's better that actually his knees will hurt and it's bleeding, because that will heal. I never liked that thought. We can all fall at certain times. It comes with human life. You see it with little babies, and eventually when they start crawling around and they start to find their balance, then the fear of parents really starts to happen, because nothing is safe anymore. Now in 1174, an architect by the name of Bonanno Pisano, you can imagine where he came from, he started working on something that became the signature of his life's work. He constructed, right beside the cathedral in Pisa, this famous tower. The Tower of Pisa. But there was just one problem. Because as they were building, the constructors very quickly realized that the soil on which they were building could not hold the structure. The soil was just too soft. And the foundation of the building itself was not going deep into the ground enough to hold it really straight up, and soon they already saw that the structure was starting to tilt, to lean in one direction. Now the architect, the constructor, they all tried to come up with all kinds of ideas, but nothing worked. The leaning Tower of Pisa was a fact and would continue to lean and lean and lean. Now it took, it says, when I was reading up on this, about 176 years to build that tower. So it was not just done quickly, they took their time. And during those 176 years, they really tried everything to somehow to straighten it or to support it somehow without really making it into an ugly building that just have all kind of concrete pieces on the side to hold it up. Now we know that the tower has survived more than 800 years. But it leans more than about 18 feet sideways. That's about 6 meters. So if from the top you would shoot something a line down, or you let a ball drop or anything, it would be about 6 meters away from the building. And they know that sooner or later, what do you think is going to happen to the tower? It will come down. They know. And actually, there is a restaurant right in the line of that building, I have been told. Would you love to have a meal in that restaurant, and knowing that sooner or later the tower is going to come down? What kind of meal would that be? Maybe the last meal? But we know it's going to come down. I've also been told when I was reading up on it that Pisa, and I need to look now at our Italian people here, Pisa, does that mean marshy or marshy land? Something that is sort of soft and so muddy? So actually the name of the town was very fitting. You see, foundations, they make all the difference. Foundations are relevant, they are important. We all need somehow foundation. You know, we're living in a world where it seems like everyone their own thing. Everyone can just do whatever they like. And it seems like there is no foundation, and that's why I think a lot of times we get ourselves into deep trouble, because there seems to be no direction anymore, no foundation. Now, another architect by the name of Frank Lloyd Wright, he was asked to build the most beautiful hotel in Tokyo. It became known as the Imperial Hotel. And now we know that Tokyo is right there in the area where a lot of earthquakes happen all the time. And so this architect Wright, knew that he had to come up with a solution to build this hotel and not risk the fact that it would come down at the first earthquake. So he came up with the idea to put the solid foundation of the hotel on top of something that was made out of mud, basically. Basically, what he constructed was a situation where the whole structure, the hotel and its foundation, was basically floating. It's not directly on solid ground. It's just floating. 60-foot layer of mud is right under there. And only a year after it had been completed, Tokyo and a large part of Japan was hit by one of the worst earthquakes they've had in 52 years. And lots of the buildings around the hotel had come down, but you know what? The hotel was still standing. Foundations make all the difference. It matters what you build on. It's important. And yet, it's not easy to find foundation nowadays. I remember in 2013 that, and some of you were here or were there at that time, what I was watching on television, on live stream, was a presentation by a man by the name of David Esherick. David Esherick had been invited to come to Novi Sad in Serbia and to speak there at the Pan-European Adventist Youth Congress. And more than 100 young people here from England were there, and then from all around Europe. About 4,000 young people together there to praise God. And David was speaking at one of those talks to all these young people. And what did he share? What was the theme that he was sharing? He talked about fear. He talked about fear. We all have something that we are afraid of. And he said, we are all living in a world where it seems like lots of people are afraid to fall, are afraid to make mistakes. He said, people today are like slaves of fear. And he used a little sort of article written by a psychologist who said that the greatest problem his patients were facing today was fear. Fear that they were going crazy. Fearing that they would be left alone. Fear of heart disease, fear of cancer, fear of disaster, fear of death. There was all kind of fears in people. And that article finished that it says, we are becoming a nation of fearful people. Now, I don't know if you remember a long time ago, and this will go for a bit more of my age generation, the younger ones probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but there was this kind of series on television. And the tune would be sort of like really this 80s type of sound. It would have clearly this kind of a synthesizer sound on it. And it would start like dang, da dang, da dang, 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 da dang, da dang, 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 dang. And as you would hear the music swell, then all of a sudden you would see the focus of the camera going to the ocean. And you saw the waves rolling in. And then the camera was zooming out. And all of a sudden from the side of your screen, you saw the people coming running into the picture. They weren't dressed in a suit like I am today. No, they were dressed in these kind of orange-red swimming trousers and swimming bathing suits. Baywatch was the series. And we had people of David Hasselhoff. And we had Pamela Anderson. And all kind of names became like world names for everyone all of a sudden. And here they were on that screen, in that series, running around the beach in slow motion. Have you ever tried to run in slow motion? It's not easy. It takes a lot of training. They were good at it. In slow motion, they were running. And of course, they were running to situations where people were in trouble. people were in need. People were afraid. They were out there in the sea and they couldn't get back. And so these people, with all their courage, would just dive into these massive waves, swim to those people and get them onto dry land. Now here we are today on this beach. And here is the water. And Baywatch is coming to the rescue. But this is a different kind of Baywatch. I will come back to this Baywatch in a moment, but let me actually ask you now a question. Who of you here would say that he or she is a Christian? You don't have to raise your hands. Just answer that question to yourself. Do you believe you are a Christian? Are you a believer in Jesus Christ? Would you say that you are a follower? Are you a follower of Jesus? Now, if inside you might have said, like, yes, I think I am. Yes, I am a follower. Now, lots of you here are from all kinds of different businesses. You work for companies, you have set up companies. Lots of you have jobs. Now, when you have a job, you get a job description, right? And when you take people on into your companies, you give them a job description. This is what I'm going to expect from you when you join my company. So what is the job description of a follower of Jesus Christ? That job description is very clearly written out in the book of Matthew. Matthew 28. You have heard this passage, where Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age." Now, how about that for a job description? You see, the heart of Christian calling is all about going out and making people disciples. Nothing else. It's quite an easy job description, isn't it? It's not like a whole do and don't list. It just says what to do. Go out, make disciples, and then teach them, guard them, just be with them, and build a relationship and bring them into a closer relationship with me, Jesus. Now, how does that happen? You see, Jesus never seemed to have given a program of what you exactly have to do, step by step by step. He just said, go, try and do. Don't just sit, but do. Christianity is an active faith. So, how do we disciple others? How does it work? Well, for instance, a friend. You have a friend, and that friend wants to get married. And the person does not really have sort of what they call a game plan. Not everything has been sort of sorted out, how we're going to make it happen. And you can tell, and so you're a good friend. And what would you do as a good friend if you see this happening? You sit down with them. And maybe you already are married, or you've seen quite a lot of marriages, and you feel you've got something to share. So you talk about it. You help this person. You even, as a Christian, bring in some biblical foundation from God's Word that talks about what is important in a relationship. A discipleship happens when a mom with 2 little kids, they come and visit you. And the mother is sharing with you that she is so tired. She's so tired to carry it all. She feels that she is no good mother. She feels a failure. And so what do? You listen. You listen. And you listen some more. And you're very careful with giving all kind of advice, but you listen. And in the end, maybe you give that person a hug. He said, "I'm with you, and I will pray for you." Is that okay? Discipleship happens when a father and a son are walking outside in town, and on the other side of the road there's walking this girl or this young woman, and she is really dressed, we should say, provocative. She's hardly wearing anything, basically. And father and son see this, and the father looks at the son and says, "Son, I want you to remember that real beauty for you, for me, for this woman, comes from the inside." And so father and son think about it together. They're in this together. That is discipleship. Discipleship happens when you touch lives, when you share life, and then you look at the needs of these people that you meet on a daily basis. Discipleship happens when you move from one place to another. And you get to know a bit your neighbors. But you also have your daughter, and your daughter loves to play music, and she's looking for a music school, and lo and behold, your neighbors know about the music school. They know, like, well, I've known about a place in Watford, Stanborough. They do a kind of a music program. Maybe that's something for your daughter. The daughter goes. The parents come along when music needs to be played in that place, and before long, they start to get connections with people. That is discipleship. That is finding out of the needs of your neighbors and then to give some advice, to be there. You see, where it all comes down to is connection. Connection. I'm reading this book, The Millennials. Now, I'm reading this book. It's by Tom Rainer and his son. I've been reading this book already for a long time, because the problem with me is I read this book a little bit, then I find another book, and I read that book a little bit. I mean, quite a number of people that know me will say, like, how many of your books you have read at least the introduction, and you didn't go any further? I mean, there's so many books on my shelves, but I know quite a few. I didn't get further than chapter 2, maybe 3, and then there was another book. But this book, at least, I'm now in chapter 6. I'm a conqueror. I'm getting further in this book, because it is so good what he's writing. He's talking about the fact what is happening within our church communities. This is a pastor as well. And he talks about the fact that what he sees is that people are becoming more and more lonely in the church community. Here we can sit with a couple of hundred people. And I know there will be people connect with us through the internet, live stream, and welcome joining us today. But the fact is that we can sit here with a great group, and still a number of can sit here feeling very lonely. Because what this writer, Thomas, is saying, he says, people don't connect. There is a lack of connection, even within the church community. Now, to sort of work on that idea, Baywatch to the rescue. You see, why do people start to disconnect? What is happening with us often? And I'm coming back now to that idea of fear. And you know, the problem with these kind of things to find is, try to find these kind of tires for adults. So you can tell this is not for an adult, but we'll manage to get them on. I know no one would advise me to go swimming this way. I would be in serious trouble. And let me actually first get my other tool out from here, otherwise I will never get into my pocket again. Let me see if I can get to it. It's somewhere in there. Just hang on. Stay here. We've got it. So, the Christian life. Here we are, floating around, trying to make it happen in our faith. And as Tom is saying, lots of us, we are on our own. We're on our own, and we're sort of close to drowning. This looks more like Popeye somehow. But you get the idea, right? Here the person is swimming, and we can get all kind of floaters. We can get all kind of ideas of how can I make it still okay for myself. I come to this church. I'm part of this community of believers. But you know what? I'll make it happen. I'll just keep on just swimming like a dog, and some of these things will keep me above water. But life happens. You know, all of a sudden, your relationship goes really south. Your child at university is failing. Your work, you're losing your job. You find out that all of a sudden the economy around us, all of a sudden the money is no longer as much worth as you thought so. And there's lots of things that can put holes in your life. And before you know it, you no longer will be able to stay above water, to float, because it has all gone out. The air of your faith has gone out. That is what Tom is saying in his book. He said, so how do we bring back the air into it? Well, these ones are of no use anymore. So you have to find another way. And what he then says, he goes to the chapter that we just heard, Matthew chapter 7, where it talks about that a wise man builds on a rock, but the fool person builds on sand. You see, building on sand basically means like you go for a shortcut. The easiest way to build on something is just to do it straight on sand, no firm foundation. But to build on rock, you have to make it even. You have to do a lot of work on it before you can build on rock. That takes time. That takes work. But you know what is more? Building on sand you can almost do by yourself. Building on rock, you need other people. You need specialists. You need a team of people to make it happen. And Jesus is talking about that there in Matthew 7, where he says, like, build on the rock. Be the wise person. Don't take shortcuts. When you read that whole passage of Matthew 7, Jesus is talking about relationships. Look at the people that can build you up. Look at the people that can be part of your foundation. As Jesus says about the building, he says, in the end, it's not even so much of what you and I do. There's nothing, Jesus actually says there's nothing that you and I can do to be accepted by our God, by our loving God. He says it comes by righteousness alone. Means that someone has paid the price for me and for you. That mercy comes from the one above. What Jesus is saying, faith without action is a dead faith. And that faith needs to be built and founded on Jesus. Massimo, Annalisa, Beth, you have found that foundation. You have found that foundation through connection with people. And you've started to build on that. And today you're saying, like, I want to build on that. I want to build my faith on actions. I want to make it happen. Now you see, there was a lawyer and a doctor. And this doctor was investigated by this lawyer. So the lawyer started to ask the question, Doctor, before you performed the autopsy, did you check for a pulse? No. Did you check for blood pressure? No. Did you actually check for breathing? No. Then would it be possible that the patient was actually alive when you began the autopsy? No. Doctor, how can you be sure? Because the patient's brain was sitting on my desk in a jar. Well, doctor, but couldn't the patient still be alive nevertheless? To which then the doctor said to the lawyer, it is possible that the patient could still have been alive and practicing law somehow. You see, the body without a brain cannot live. We know that. But Jesus is actually saying in Matthew 7, faith without action cannot be alive either. Today, we see faith in action. And may we who have made already that decision, that choice to follow Jesus, to be a follower, and then to share with others, may we be encouraged when we see this happening. And may we actually ourselves again say yes to Jesus. Yes, I want to be a follower. I don't want to let fear put me down. I want to go out and share this wonderful Jesus wherever I get a chance. Let we all be that. Let we all be basically Baywatch to the rescue. There's a lot of people in trouble out there, and even with us here. So let's have our eyes open, let's share, and let's today rejoice